Okay, so some of you have already done this in the homework and in the last project. So this is kind of a repeat, but it's okay, I guess. So let's start from a fresh Enterprise Miner screen. So open this, and we're going to create a new project. Okay, so we give a project name, Ch02 clean data. Underscore clean data, and then specify the folder, and we're going to use C drive MGT4270 as the folder. Okay, and then this is a two-step process. It tells you what it's going to do, and click finish, and you have the project open. So there are three things that you have to do before you can do any kind of analysis or tasks. The first thing to do is to create a library. Okay. Create a library. I'm going to name it. And you have to follow the naming convention. And again, I'm going to use C drive MGT4270 as the library, as the path for the library. Okay, so this is, I get the feedback, action is success, so finish. All right, next is you have to create a data source. Okay, now data source works for SAS data sets. Okay? If your data is in Excel or Access or any other format, then you have to use the file import method to bring in the data. So data source is only for SAS data set. And again, there are three ways in which you can get this started. Actually, there are four ways. So you can click this icon, or you can click File, New, Data Source, or you can use that one and Data Source, or the quickest way that I like is just right click and create data source. Okay. All right, so now this has to be a SAS table. All right, now click next. Now we have to now find the SAS table. Okay, so browse. So that opens up all the libraries that are available. There are a bunch of libraries that SAS automatically creates. Of these, work is the one that, where our intermediate SAS data sets, like exported data sets from the nodes, they will all be saved in this work. And whatever data set is in work library will all be gone when you exit SAS Enterprise Miner. So it is a temporary library. Now MGT4270 is the library that we just set up. Okay, remember that library is nothing but a pointer to a path to a folder. So there, these are the data sets that I have in there, but you may have different. Now if you don't have anything, then you have to download this data set, patients data set from Blackboard, okay, into that folder. Then if you add new stuff, then you have to refresh. So if you put new data set into the folder, it won't automatically show up here. Okay, so you have to do a refresh. So then we select patients. Okay, click OK. Now this is an 8-step process. So when you have a SAS data set, you bring it in, then you have to set up the metadata. That is, okay, for each column in the data set, you have to set the level and the role and so on, which we did when we imported the Excel data set. Remember when we brought in the Excel data set, we did that. Yes?
How did you add my patients is in the library? How did you add it in the library?
how did I add the patients? Well, I just downloaded it into that. See, from, I have the data set here in Blackboard, right? Okay, so you right click and save link as. No, not save link as. Well, actually, just click and you have to log in and all that kind of stuff, I guess. And then you just download it. And if it downloads into downloads folder, then just move it from there to 4270. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So here, the name of the SAS table, okay, look at it. So it's the library name dot the name of the table. Okay. So now click next. So it tells you, okay, some properties. Okay, name of the table, what kind of member type, and so on. It tells you how many variables there are, how many observations there are. Okay, so this is just an information page. You don't do anything at this stage. You just review it and say it looks good, then move on. So here is the metadata advisor. What metadata advisor does is that it automatically sets some roles and levels for you. Okay, so you can either use basic. The basic would be whatever defaults that SAS Enterprise Miners has. So you will use those defaults to set those parameters, or you can go advanced. So if you go to advanced, then you go customize, right? Now the customize is where you set those default values. So let's look at what those default values are now. Okay, so the first one says missing percentage threshold. Okay, specifies the maximum percentage of missing values, okay, for a variable, so that either it will be included or rejected. So which means if you have a column that has too many missing values, so it's not going to be very useful for you in the analysis. So you want to reject that variable. So you can set that value here. You can either lower it or make it higher if you like. So 50% is the default value that's specified in SAS EM, or you can change it. Okay, so you can do whatever change that you want. So we're going to leave it at that. The second one is reject variables with excessive missing value. So the first line and the second line go together. Okay, so if you say no here, then that value has no relevance. Okay, so it's not going to reject no matter what. So these two go together. If it is yes, then that number will be used as the threshold. Okay, above which the variable will be rejected, below which it will not be rejected. Okay, the same for the next two. Okay, detect class levels, class level count threshold. So this is for nominal and ordinal variables. In other words, categorical variables. So if it has too many categories, then you want to reject that variable. Okay, and that threshold. So you can either say, look for it, it should be yes, right? If you say no, then it won't look for it. It will not be rejected at all, no matter how many levels there are. But if you say yes, then it will look at the count that you have specified, and the default is 20. So if a categorical variable has 20 or more categories, then too many categories, we don't want it. Okay. Education. All right. So you have first grade, second grade, third grade, and so on. So this is a ordinal variable. It has too many categories. It's not of much use to me. Okay. In some instances, it may be of use. So you can say, don't look at the number of categories. Okay. So like that. And Facebook, about a couple of years back, they came up with gender categories. You know how many gender categories they came up with?
2.
No, I'm talking about Facebook now. 50. I'm kidding not. So there was
But that wouldn't be ordinal because they
that
don't
would be
ascribe-
nominal.
That'd be nominal. They don't ascribe.
Right, yeah. That would be, well, hopefully that would be nominal. I don't want it to be nominal.
But the reason why
Well-
that there's like a grade, there's like an order or a value to grades, sort of, right? Is that why that's ordinal?
If you have an ordering, then that would be ordinal, yeah. Okay, and we will leave it at 20. And then the next two are all right, so I misspoke. What I said just now is for this. Specify maximum number of levels for a class variable to be marked as reject. And so these two are for what I just described is for these two rows. Okay. Now, what these two rows are, okay, so they are for a interval variable to be classified as a nominal variable. Okay. So if you have an interval variable, like for example, so how many dollars you spend in a store, and if that value is in like they are rounded to a particular value within a range. So for example, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Okay. There are only 4 values. It's an interval variable, right? And there are only 4 values. Okay. So you may want to consider that interval variable as a categorical variable. And that threshold is how many distinct values you have in an interval variable, okay, up to which that your maximum threshold. If it is up to that value, you will code it as not an interval variable, but as a nominal variable. Okay. So that's that 20. So you can change it, of course. You can change it to 50 or 15 or whatever. So how many distinct values it should have, a minimum level of distinct values an interval should have for it to be treated as an interval variable. Otherwise, it will be treated as a nominal variable. Okay. Database pass-through, we don't have to worry about that. So these are the parameters that you can control. Okay. Now click OK.